So what are you hearing when you do your polling? What are you hearing from people on this issue?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. I think first that people are hearing that there are auto workers who are making big six-figure salaries. They're making $200,000, $250,000 to build cars. Now, not that they shouldn't make a lot of money, but it seems pretty exorbitant to be making $250,000 working on an assembly line and then coming to the government for a bailout. So, I think that Americans are fed up. I think if you look at Rick Wagner get up there, and we're in the business of credibility and communications. Does anybody think that he's credible getting up there? A week ago he didn't have a plan. This week he's got a better plan. If anything, the Congress should probably send him back and say, go do it again. It seems to keep getting better for taxpayers and for the industry each time that they go back. So why not send them back? I think just two other things from a communications perspective. First, the auto workers are using this term concessions, right? What do you hear when you hear the word concession? It sounds like they are kicking and screaming. It doesn't sound like they're coming to the table like they want to be proactive about a solution. It sounds like they're being forced, that the automakers and the auto workers are being forced to do something. So as far as I'm concerned, from a PR perspective, from a communication perspective, they're doing a terrible job of communicating their position. They're also being entirely reactive to the situation. Everything that they've done, from driving in on a Chevy Volt to each of the plans that they've come up with, is reacting to the situation. And the first rule that we tell our clients is that you want to capture the high ground of the discussion. You want to control the terms of the discussion. You want to be proactive. You want to be setting the terms of the debate. Right now they're not. They're all reacting to the news, to what Congress is throwing at them.
Right. But if nothing gets done, if they don't have the votes, in particular in the House, to pass something through, KT, you know the finance community, so do you as well. How long can the automakers hold out?
I think they got, Mitt Romney had an editorial about a week or so ago, and he said, let them go into Chapter 11 bankruptcy. That's what the law was set up for. Chapter 7 in the bankruptcy law says liquidation, you sell everything. Chapter 11 allows you to keep going, keep making your widgets, whatever your cars are, and then renegotiate the salaries, renegotiate a lot of the contracts.
But Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid have said, now whether they have control over this or not, that's another discussion, but they have said bankruptcy is not an option.
Well, why not? Bankruptcy was an option.
Kill the industry, even though technically...
Well, but it didn't. Mitt Romney's father turned around General Motors when they went into Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the 1960s, and that's the example.
And it's great that he did, but we're looking at a very different business climate right now. We're looking at an economy where people are holding back on purchases of all kinds, especially major purchases. So, I'm not defending these executives at all, and I certainly don't believe that the workers are the bad guys in all this. I think that the $200,000, $250,000 salaries are exaggerated and blown out of proportion, and certainly aren't the average. And concessions is a neutral term for what they've already made quite a bit of givebacks or concessions or whatever you want to call it before all this happened. I'm not saying they shouldn't do more, but the fact remains that people are going to be very, just looking at it as a marketplace, and I'd be curious for your reaction because you study market psychology as well as public attitudes. What is going to be the attitude of a consumer about buying a car from a company that's in bankruptcy?
Look, I think they're functionally in bankruptcy right now.
Yeah.
Look at the sales numbers. They're down 47% for GM. People aren't buying because they assume that GM is toast right now.
Even with a bailout, it's toast.
So why not, speed up the process, put them into bankruptcy, get them out of bankruptcy. These prepackaged bankruptcies, assuming that they can line up the financing, happen very quickly. This could have been done. Actually, they could have been in, I may be exaggerating slightly, but they probably could have been in and close to out of bankruptcy in the amount of time that we're having this fight.
Yeah. And then once they come out of bankruptcy, it's a healthy company.
Yeah.
And then there's no question you do want to buy something from that
I think the question is it's a gamble either way. And normally, and I think under normal circumstances, I absolutely would be for them to go into Chapter 11. I think it's Congress and everyone else that's assessing the situation is assessing risk. Do we allow them to go into bankruptcy and risk the whole industry going under, or do we bail them out up front and hope that it gets better in the long term. And
But who's
the
next? I mean, the
lesser
problem I
versus-
have with this whole thing is who's next.
Right.
This is
And
the
I
automobile
agree with
industry.
you.
American
I
Express will
agree.
show up.
This is an email we got in from Tracy Thompson in Illinois. She says, I live in Illinois near a steel town. U.S. Steel has come out and stated that they're going to shut down the plant for a few weeks. This has never happened before. The plant has been around for more than 70 years. If we bail out the auto industry, then the steel industry has every right to go to the government with their tin cup. We've seen home builders saying, okay, government, we need a bailout of sorts as well. So to your point, where does it end?
It won't end. I mean, Great Britain went through the same thing. And the minute they started bailing out one, and then they nationalized it, then they ended up nationalizing British Coal, British Steel, British Leland, which was the car company, the telecommunications, the trains, the airlines. They nationalized everybody because what's there to stop it at that point?
What does this do to our position overseas, that we are in this very tough position economically? I mean, you've been ambassador to 3 important countries. What do you think it does to us?
Well, there isn't any doubt in my mind, and I think in anyone's mind, that if you're not economically strong, your ability as a nation to influence the course of events around the world is diminished. You can't defend yourself. You are much less able to see your way through and protect what is vital to Americans. But we are at an unusual time. We're at a moment in which the entire world, this recession, has gone global. And country after country, industry after industry is being affected. What I've admired, and I think those I've talked to from other countries around the world have admired about the United States, is our willingness to roll up our sleeves and take big chances. It doesn't mean we're going to get it right all the time. Our bailout systems have had to change. But we've taken big risks. We've taken big positions. And some will work and some won't work. When you come to the auto industry, I think I probably come out in favor of a bailout. I'm reluctantly arriving at that position. But I have a feeling that we are underestimating in our conversation today the interconnection between this industry and so much of American life, so many other industries, the psychology of the nation. We are an auto culture. You start talking bankruptcy, and you see all sorts of things come apart. Market collapses and market confidence. It's not simply a technical question of bankruptcy versus non-bankruptcy. It's a much bigger issue than that. We've just gone through, in the financial sector, we stood back and said, you know, somebody's got to fall, and how about Lehman? And now I think a couple of weeks later we're looking back and saying, did we really anticipate how Lehman was connected throughout the world and the rest of the economy? And was that the right move?
Yeah, so many
And I'm worried we're making the same, we're kind of looking at the auto industry as an abstraction, standing on its own, when in fact it is intricately tied to the world and the American prosperity.
We have a lot of business folks here on the strategy room, and one thing so many of them do say is the failure of Lehman Brothers helped this whole snowball to get rolling, and helped is perhaps the wrong word, but that's part of the reason where the economy is today and that the markets are as volatile as they are, because the government failed to bail out that company when it bailed out other companies. But, you know, still to that question, where does it stop? And what happens if we keep bailing out industry after industry? I mean, that could end up bankrupting our country, and we're just printing money and borrowing money from other countries in order to pay for all these